What about the pandemic origins? From very early on, there was informed reporting and circumstantial evidence that COVID-19 might have sprung from a leak at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where Chinese scientists were meddling with so-called gain-of-function research. No one advanced this reporting more than our own Sharri Markson in the Daily Telegraph, in the Australian and on this station. She ended up writing the book on the subject and making the documentary.
What was going on in the Wuhan Institute of Virology?
You're going to have to figure that out, and you probably won't, knowing you.
An investigation into the origin of COVID-19.
There's more than just smoke here. There's fire from different sources.
Terrific stuff from Sharri. Always was standout reporting, and here on this show, we were right into this stuff all along. Here's what I was saying here 2 years ago. Well, as you know, we have aired facts and informed opinions about the origins of the virus on this program over the past year. And much of the evidence has pointed to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But incredibly, elsewhere, especially at the public broadcaster, the ABC, they didn't follow Markson's reporting or investigate the story themselves. They got into what I call anti-journalism mode, and they just attacked the story.
We're told another member of the Intelligence and Security Committee was appalled by the Telegraph's articles. And on Friday, two ex-Labor foreign ministers, Gareth Evans and Bob Carr, a regular China defender, joined the condemnation.
It seems the US Embassy gave a confected report to an Australian newspaper inflating baseless claims that the COVID-19 virus was hatched in a Chinese laboratory in Wuhan.
Pushing the Wuhan Lab line in defiance of all intelligence assessments is just another nail in the coffin of US international credibility.
Yeah, the biggest question in the world at that time, and the ABC did not want to know the answer.
Let's start with Mike Pompeo and the president there saying that, or in Mike Pompeo's words, there's enormous evidence this virus started in a Wuhan lab. What do you make of that?
Well, I've looked into this, and other journalists have looked into this as well as scientists, and there really is very little evidence. It's on the outer bounds of possibility, but really so unlikely that you could say definitely that it's not the case.
Look, it was always obvious why the ABC hated the Wuhan lab link theory, and it's as puerile as the simple fact that Donald Trump gave it credence.
Donald Trump has specifically named the Wuhan Institute as the lab likely responsible for releasing the virus.
Well, from wild claims about vaccines and the promotion of unproven cures, as well as competing baseless claims about a virus that was created in a lab and unleashed for nefarious purposes, the pandemic has been an opportunity for misinformation and disinformation.
Yeah, the left didn't like where the evidence was pointing because they were deranged about Donald Trump. The Guardian, of course, ran the anti-Trump and, happily for them, anti-News Corp line. And the foreign editor at The Age and Sydney Morning Herald tweeted derisively about News Corp's exclusive reporting. Even former Prime Minister and now designated Australian ambassador to Washington, Kevin Rudd, weighed in, dissing the reporting on the basis that it was based largely on publicly available information. I bet Beijing was cheering on these Muppets. Indeed, there was so much about this story that was on the public record, it only made it even more deplorable that the ABC and the other Green left media ignored it. And again, this is not the wisdom of hindsight. I was pointing this out 2 years ago when the Washington Post was finally starting to wake up after Trump had gone. To be sure, the Washington Post does not say definitively that the Wuhan Institute is the source, nor do I. Nor did Sharri Markson. But unlike Paul Barry and Beijing, I'm with the Washington Post. There is a lot of evidence pointing to this facility. The only way to prove this or disprove this is for the Chinese to allow full access to the lab, its staff and their databases. So much denial over this story, and still that denial continues. The Wuhan denial continued from so many on the left, so that after Markson published her globally significant book on the saga, What Really Happened in Wuhan, we had the bizarre situation where ABC media commentator Wendy Harmer, instead of congratulating Markson, she retweeted Chinese communist propaganda and accused Markson of risking World War III. Even just 6 months ago, the ABC was desperately running the Beijing line and targeting Markson and News Corp.
So, has the mystery of COVID's origin finally been solved? The study's lead authors believe it has. Professor David Robertson from the University of Glasgow told the BBC he hoped the new evidence would correct the false record that the virus came from a lab.
They'll grab any snippet like that they can because they don't like the facts of this story. It's just extraordinary, isn't it? Well, the big news today is that we are significantly closer to the truth on this matter. And who seems to be right? The Trump-hating, journalism-denying, Beijing-defending, incurious green left journalists? Or those of us who checked the facts and backed Sharri Markson's fastidious work? Well, the Wall Street Journal, no less, has reported that a lab leak was the most likely origin of the COVID-19 pandemic, according to the Department of Energy. The Energy Department's conclusion is the result of new intelligence and is significant, says the Wall Street Journal, because the agency has considerable scientific expertise and oversees a network of US national laboratories, some of which conduct advanced biological research. Previously, this agency was undecided. Now its finding matches those of the FBI. This blows the Wuhan deniers out of the water. If we had relied on the green left media and our ABC, nobody would have known anything about this for the past 3 years. In fact, incredibly, they have desperately tried to shut down, shame, belittle and discourage those journalists interested in pursuing the truth. Thankfully, as Winston Churchill famously said, the truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it, ignorance may deride it, but in the end, there it is. Except on the ABC.